What is going on, guys, and welcome back to Touchdowns to Home Runs. My name is Bernie. Thank you for joining us today on the Touchdowns to Home Runs show. Hope that your day is going absolutely fantastic. Now, over the course of the past week or so, there's been an ongoing rumor regarding a potential offer from the Golden State Warriors to the Toronto Raptors that would include James Wiseman, the 7th overall pick, potentially some other pieces that we're not really going to be covering today, but that would be in exchange for Pascal Siakam. Now, Raptors fans, including myself, have seemed to be a bit divided regarding the ceiling of Siakam and if he should be available for a trade. So today we're going to be analyzing a little bit of this Golden State Warriors potential trade offer, but then just the overall availability and the future of Siakam as a whole. Now, just before we do get into the video, though, I just want to clarify a couple of things. First of all, this trade idea, as I was saying before, was not created by me. This is a rumor that has been going around, but I'm just going to be breaking it down and what it would look like if the Raptors did accept it or accept a trade like this. But at the end of the video, I will have an official verdict of my own regarding the trade and his availability as a whole. But anyways, let's get right into it. And I think the first question that the Raptors have to ask themselves is, has Pascal Siakam peaked so far? Now, this seems like a pretty simple question to answer, but when you really start looking at it, it's a little more complicated than just that. In 2020, 2021, averaged 21.4 points per game, 7.2 boards, 4.5 assists, which is fairly decent statistically. His numbers actually took some jumps in quite a few different categories. And I think he's a better playmaker overall than he's been over the course of the past couple of years. But his scoring numbers, points per game, did take a slight drop overall. And the big number that dropped was his three-point percentage, dropped under 30% as a whole. But the last 15 months for Siakam right around has been pretty weird. It's been a pretty weird time for everybody, but specifically for Siakam, was phenomenal at the beginning of the 2019-20 season, but really struggled in the bubble. And even this past 2020-21 season wasn't exactly perfect for him either. The big question when it comes to Siakam, though, and what the Raptors organization and front office is really going to have to be able to evaluate, and we'll talk about this a little more on later in the video, is Pascal Siakam a number one option? You know, what is Siakam's ceiling really? Is he going to remain an all-star? Because I think, he could be an all-star every year, but is he a guy who's going to be a number one option on a contending team? And to be honest, I don't know the answer to that right now. I'm sure a lot of Raptors fans don't really know the answer to that either. And that's why this video is even a discussion. But yeah, so I think that's definitely something that the Raptors do have to evaluate. Looking specifically at the Warriors trade, now obviously we would get the 7th pick back. James Wiseman has been the big name sort of thrown around there. So who actually is James Wiseman? Is it worth it for the Raptors? Well, obviously he's only 20 years old. He was the 2nd pick from last year's NBA draft, and quite a number of people were seemingly upset, a little disappointed with what he did statistically in his rookie season. But in my opinion, he actually did fairly well, given the difficulty and how difficult it is for these young centers, especially at only 20 years old, to sort of make that jump from the collegiate to NBA level, but then also taking into consideration, the limited games that he did play in college. Last year, averaged 11.5 points per game, 5.8 boards, 0.9 blocks, and again, he's a 7-foot, 240-pound big man. Definitely gives him some upside, I think, potentially slotting in at the 5 for the Raptors. Given the Raptors' depth chart, the lack of center depth, James Wiseman is obviously an enticing piece, maybe not for Siakam, but definitely addresses the Raptors' center issue, and to be honest, filling a hole in the 4 is then a lot easier than filling a hole in the 5, in my opinion. So it would make it a bit easier for the Raptors in both free agency and in the draft, I think, would just time a little bit easier. So it's definitely something that I think the Raptors should look at. The third question that I sort of have, and I would pose regarding this trade is, are you going to be getting enough value from that 7th pick? Because obviously it's not James Wiseman. That 7th pick would be holding a lot of value in this trade coming back for the Raptors. And, I don't really know. Obviously we're slotted right now at picking 4th, and we're probably going to be getting Jalen Suggs, which I think is a phenomenal addition for the Raptors, very suitable for their scheme, an efficient scorer, great leader, high basketball IQ. I think is really going to help the Raptors probably off their bench next year be able to flow, I think, a lot better than we saw in this past season. The thing about the 7th is the 7th pick is the first pick that really starts to sort of go all over the place. You have multiple different options, which is why the 7th pick is definitely very intriguing, because you assume that Cade, Mobley, Jalen Green, Jalen Suggs, Kuminga, and probably Scotty Barnes are locked in at that top 6. Now, if Scotty Barnes falls down to the Raptors, I think that's a tremendous addition. A little bit of a project, but he's a great two-way player. I think would definitely be great off the bench. But if that's not the case, you're looking at guys like Keon Johnson, Davion Mitchell, and so on. And even though you can't address the center depth, you would be getting James Wiseman back in the trade. So again, you would have a little bit more options. All the players at this spot, though, do have some issues in some different way in their game, whether it's shooting efficiency like Keon Johnson, size from some of these guys. They do have those issues. But I do also think a lot of these guys could definitely bolster the Raptors. Keon Johnson, the most athletic player in this draft, definitely could bolster their lineup, give them a bit of identity, especially on the offensive side of the basketball. The fourth one is, and I think this is actually the most important question, for the availability of Pascal Siakam as a whole, not just in a potential trade with the Golden State Warriors. You got to ask yourself, for the Warriors, are the Raptors closer to rebuilding right now, or are they closer to a win-now situation? Again, last season didn't go the way that the Raptors wanted by any means. Finished with a 27-45 record, missed the playoffs for the first time in 8 years. But again, how much do you value, well, obviously the injuries were a huge concern. How much do you value not being able to actually play at home with fans or without? That probably helps the Raptors a little bit, just get some normality back. But still, when you look at the Raptors roster, there's a ton of talent with the core of Siakam, Gary Trent, Anunoby, Van Vliet, Malachi Flynn, and so on and so on. It's a young, solid core that definitely makes it look like you're one or maybe two pieces away from still being able to get back into contention in the Eastern Conference. Now, I think that number one option, having that number one option and Siakam not being able to be that player yet, or Anunoby not being able to develop into being that player, I think is the big concern here. And, the ability to be able to compete with the Nets, the Bucks, the 76ers, I guess the Hawks now as well. So, the Raptors really, again, as I was saying before, need to evaluate, are Siakam, even OG Anunoby, are those any potential to be number one options, or are you looking at, having to go out, get another option, and then make sure that those guys are only the 2-3 guys on a contending team? And I think that is super, super important. So overall, my verdict, I think it is very difficult as it stands now, to sort of make a trade like this. I think it's super, super difficult. It's really tough to tell where the Raptors sort of stand. They're in sort of a state of middleness almost. But in my opinion, what really kills this trade is Siakam is at a sell low right now. Not only is he going to miss the beginning of the season with an injury, but he's coming off not the greatest season sort of his career. Not that it was bad in any means, but sort of you want him to take that extra jump. And I think, if you wanted to trade Siakam, for example, last season or before last season, there would have been a huge difference in the value that you would be getting back for him. I think the potential of the trade, though, could be sort of interesting for the Raptors to at least consider. I think it's definitely reasonable enough that they should look into this. I think Wiseman is a phenomenal player. I think that the 7th pick could definitely be something that the Raptors want, but would I do this Warriors trade right now? Probably not. But again, that being said, Siakam should be available. In no way, I think, in my opinion, should he be untouchable. I think if anybody's untouchable on the roster, it's OG Anunoby. But again, if the package is right, I think that there is a possibility that the Raptors may want to look into moving on from Siakam. I think that you just got to make sure that the package is the best that you can get, and you got to be selling on Siakam at the right time, at his sell high sort of point, which I don't think is right now. But anyways, guys, if you did make it to this point in the video, let me know your comments, thoughts, predictions on everything that I talked about today. Do you guys think the Warriors and Raptors should do this trade? And also from the Raptors' point of view, do you think Siakam should be available on the trade market right now? But if you guys did enjoy today's video, make sure to smash that thumbs up button, subscribe to Touchdowns to Home Runs for more Raptors content just like this. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again next time.